put the sticks in it yet, because if you had them in and already glued, it's going to be very hard to, like, when you're flipping over and trying to cut back. So I try to map everything out. It could also help to do like sketches and quick sketches like that. That would help you a lot. But try to have everything planned out before you start gluing a lot. I mean, you could still make additions afterwards, but it's just easier if you don't. You just have them mapped out and then you can fold them back in.
Any questions for him so far? It's a really fun assignment. You just have to have fun. But again, I think instead of you figuring out what to do, just try to make rules for yourself. You know, with anything that you do, try to make rules, and then once you come across that situation, then it will be easy for you to solve.
Yeah. How do you do the color?
We're not gonna do the color.
Okay.
Yeah. This was transfer with a transfer pen as well.
I think on those we scanned it,
Yeah.
and then we did our graphic.
Photoshop. Yeah, so there's different ways. Some people did painting, some people did transfer the pen, some people put it in Photoshop and superimpose imagery onto it. Yeah, that's why we have to make a lot of originals this way.
Do we have to have that specific knife, or can we use
No. Whatever you have, your overblade is fine. This is an X-Acto. I think that's what Veronica uses.
Yeah. But no, this was actually my favorite project that we did, Shetty.
So what you want to do before you spray it and put it on your museum board, so you don't waste your material, get one of your printout and play with that one first. Okay. Look and push and pull, fold it, carve away, and see if it's telling the story what you want it to express. Okay, before you do the actual one.
Do we put it on the crystal paper or museum board?
You put it on 2-ply museum.
Okay. Do we do it before we cut or after?
You do it. You put it before you cut.
Okay.
Right. But what I'm saying is, on one of the printout, you want to plan out what you want to cut first. Then you spray, and then cut. As you can see, some of this, it's coming off a little bit, but this is over time. This is over a year old, so. But the Super 77 is a really good spray. You could also use glue too. You just have to make sure that it's spread out pretty thin and evenly throughout. Okay, and remove any air bubbles. You could also, what Intro 2 is doing is taking your image, cutting the Bristol or the museum board down to 11 by 17, and you can print it onto your paper, and that's what Intro 2 did. So you guys can try that as well. I have to figure out this down below. And all you have to do is just feed it through what's that tray called? The feeder tray, right? Instead of selecting a tray, you feed it through the feeder.
A lot of the times when you're making your cuts, just because you have the fold in general, like that, doesn't mean you have to keep the whole thing. Like for this one, for example, I made the fold, but I also want to show negative space, and I want to show like a sense of my concept into this as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shave off a little bit as well, and that's going to create negative space without having to cut all the way into the model.
And that's important what he just said. You don't have to keep 100% of your graphic. That could be carveaways and to create negative spaces, so that spaces will begin to flow under and over, through and around.
And also with the sticks, you want to use the sticks to create a sense of scale, but also as well, when you're creating your folds, you must be mindful that they're not all going in like the same direction and not all going in the same like height at this, like in the exact same spot, because if all these went up right now, it would like just show one sense of scale pretty much. But when you fold up and down and different heights, you're showing your groundwork, and your groundwork's going down, your groundwork's going up, and it's changing elevations. So the way I work with it, I try to keep my dichotomy in mind, and so I'm working pretty much off of what I remember from mine, which was attraction and repulsion. So I want a lot of things to start coming from here, but as well as at the same time they're coming from here, they're stemming off to the side and also down, and they're like being repulsed away from that main point, and that's how I'm trying to build my concept within the draw.
Another key point is that you want to think about alignment, right? How certain cuts could begin to align.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly your major sticks, your primary sticks could begin to help alignment, right? All of your graphics should also have construction lines, so that could also begin to suggest alignment. Again, as you're doing this, there needs to be 3 different scales in the way that you fold and in the spaces that you carve out, okay? And certainly in the sticks as well, okay?
Also, when I haven't done it yet, but when you start putting your sticks in, you could notch. I think Omar did it a couple times. You can notch
Yeah.
your sticks instead of like just having them stop there. They can push through, because I mean everything you do is gonna have a meaning and a reaction to it. So when you do something, you're doing it for a reason, and
Here, that comes through. The stick.
that's the main thing I try to think about when whenever I'm doing anything. Honestly, I carry it through me all the way to the core. Just whenever I do something, I try to have a meaning behind it, not have it meaningless, because at the end of the day, as long as it has a meaning, you can explain what it is and why you're doing it, and that's going to help you with everything that you do.
Can you maybe make one main gesture going
Main gesture?
horizontally?
Yep.
So don't go cut happy, meaning like don't just cut without thinking about it. Plan it out ahead of time. Like I said, there has to be a hierarchy in anything that you do, whether it's elemental or spatial. There has to be a hierarchy. Okay. That main gesture, what is it? When I look at his composition, I see 2 axes crossing each other, right? And where they intersect, for me, that's probably a hierarchy, right? And you can clearly see that in this graphic.
I got Drawdle.
Yeah.
They can show that. How to transfer.
So guys, when we pin this up on Monday, so the 4 drawdles are due Monday, so you have your main one and your 3 enlarge of the 3 words. When we pin these up all together, they're gonna look really good as a class. I mean, we pin those up in a corridor upstairs, and they look great as a set. So hopefully you can do that.
So, do we need 3 words?
Hmm?
Do we need 3 words?
Do you need what?
3 words?
So you have your 2 words, and then there's an in between. So
Okay.
you have to figure out what that in between is.
And I have to pick a word for that?
You don't have to pick a word,
Oh, okay.
but you just have to know what the in between is
Okay.
in order for you to do this.
Also,
Or want to do that.
I didn't think they had to be opposites, so.
That's okay. Opposite was just easier, as
Okay.
long as there are 2 words that can work with each other.
Okay.
The opposite, yeah, like I said, the opposite's easier because, you have day and night, left and right. You just figure out like what are the characteristics of those, and then they come together and coexist. It's just easier that way.
Like 2 words.
So when we print this out on 11 by 17. As you can see, I mean, looking at the two big ones on the back and this one here and what Ulysses is doing, it is not an explicit 11 by 17, okay? It's implicit. So think about how you carve away the negative spaces. Sticks should really come all the way through and extend because it shows movement continuous from this boundary that you are given, okay? Don't just abruptly stop the stick, but they should move through horizontally and vertically. And you can see his graphic is starting to get interesting already, and it hasn't taken him that long, you know. But I think if you plan it out ahead of time, what you want to cut on the printout sheet, your final will go very quickly. And again, keep it clean, keep it straight, take your time with it, don't rush. Project 2, especially Project 1, it was a progression of your project. Project 2, you're going to be graded based on each of the assignments, right? Because everything is so separate, it's so different. But one thing leads to the next. Like this is a set and becomes a grade. This is a set and it's a grade. The 3 corrugated cardboard models is a set and it's a grade. Okay, so he's gonna start gluing now. And certainly the pieces that you cut off could come back and do something too. You don't have to throw them away, right? Especially the ones that have lines and information on them, they could come back and do something. And they can play. You can lift them up, certainly, and you can turn them down. You can do lots to it. So, this is not wait till the weekend and do. There's definitely process and steps in doing this, so don't wait until Sunday, and certainly don't wait until Monday to do this, because you will not get it done, or you will get it done and not do a good job of it. This process is in everything that you do, so take your time and plan out your week ahead of time.
Did you want me to start gluing in now?
Yeah, please. So you should be getting sticks various size. Certainly these thinner, wider sticks are really good. Don't go beyond, I think it's a 1/2 inch. I think that's what we gave everyone. Don't go beyond a 1/2 inch of these things. So the 1/2 inch is the thickness, the thickest, the widest stick that you could use.
You can also extend sticks.
So you don't have to glue the stick right against the paper. Like for example, this guy right here, you can see, especially on the back, he's not glued right against the piece of paper. He actually is moved away from the paper, so there's space between the sticks, right? Which is really quite nice, and it shows the space running all the way through. It's really nice. I know you're all going to be working in probably this view mainly, but do turn it to the side and certainly turn it this way too. You know, if you don't see interesting spaces on this side, then you're doing something wrong. You also need to be pushing and pulling to the back as well, okay? The front will just naturally look more interesting just because you have all of your graphics on it, but the back has to be also spatial as well. Okay, so your stick size, Ulysses, are you kind of following your line weight?
Yeah, I was trying to show this line right here, and when you're doing the line weights, you're trying to follow and mimic your graphic, because this is pretty much, they call it a drawdle because it's a drawing that's being converted into a model. So in your graphics, the way to show scale is with line weights and all that. So when you're doing it in a model, the way to show scale is with actual scale stick.
Any questions so far? It's meticulous work, right? It's not like Project 1 where it was all chunky and big. This is very meticulous.
Okay, so what's gonna be due on Monday?
I'll tell you later.
Okay.
My biggest
Alright,
recommendation.
You guys have plenty to do for Monday.
My biggest recommendation is to, just how Chatty was saying, make sure you plan out and know what you want to do. Because, like, for example, right now, I'm putting in the stick right now because I'm not doing an entire one. But when I put this stick in right now, it's going to limit me from cutting on this side and even on this side. I can maybe do a couple more here, but it's going to limit me from cutting. So make sure you plan everything before you start putting in sticks and gluing, because that's going to help you with your overall model.
How many different size of sticks should we have?
Minimum 3. I would achieve for 5, especially in this big one, right? Because we're now talking about, you have your construction line weights, you have your kind of your ghosted, your light, medium, heavy.
So the bigger the stick, the darker the line weight?
That's how, it's not literal. You don't have to think of it so literal, where it's just like, oh, if there's a big stick there or a thick line weight, I'm gonna do a thick, stick. It's not always so literal, but generally when you're creating your graphic, you want to think about it in a way where you're thinking about scale and proportions. So when you're doing that could help you, but it doesn't always have to be like that, where just because it's a thick line weight, it has to be a thick stick.
Okay.
Because also when you're putting let's say you're putting in your small sticks with a thicker line weight, you're showing the sense of scale with the drawing compared to the stick at that point. So it's not only this is for one stick itself. So now when I have this with the thick line weight, you're showing 2 senses of scale.
Okay. When you're cutting and then you're going either up or down on it, how do you take into account, because to bring it down, you're gonna lose some of that object?
Yeah, so that's what when I actually did that here. So when I went down here, I knew that this line would shift, which is this line right here.
Right.
But as I was doing it, I was still trying to line up this to show the overall movement of this line in my drawing. So even though that you're cutting this and shifting it, you're showing a shift and you're showing the reasoning because of the shift, but you're still showing that line.
Okay.
But now you're showing it with a stick.
But that elongated space could be broken down by him taking maybe this movement or this movement and then shifting it over to
Yeah.
make that gap.
That can shift over here. I think Omar did it once right here as well. So he had this movement where this is negative space,
Right.
but this movement went, and at first it was over here, but
Mhm.
then he shifted it backwards and it translated over here, and now that covered up that
Oh,
space.
okay.
So yeah, it's basically you're pushing and pulling in order to create spaces and define interactions within the model.
So you can use that negative space to help you move line weights and move.
The negative space, it helps you tie everything together. So
So you guys are lucky that you got 2 tutorials on this. Their class, they got like a 5-minute one.
Yeah.
And it was just like a small little
Just how to
thing.
fold it.
Yeah, just how
Cut
to
it.
fold. You guys are getting a pretty thorough explanation, concepts, and
Yeah,
reasonings.
just this last section.
So I'm coming around and show you Ulysses. So from that graphic, this is his set. Okay, and you can see those.
Can we sell that in our group chat?
Huh?
Can we sell that in our group chat?
I was gonna bring in the portfolio with it, but I forgot it at home. So as I was, who was
You
it?
can see that negative space that he has on the bottom.
So when I was
You can
showing
lift it
you
up, and
that
those words is
you
gonna
could
go in
use the
and,
line on top to follow it as well,
Right.
you can also show how it's shifting as well. So
Oh,
this
okay.
line is now being
Over here.
shifted. Yeah.
For your thin areas that are potentially your sticks,
Yep.
can you just like cut those out and replace them with the sticks?
These, I wouldn't like literal do a cut because a lot of things when you're trying to handle them, you're not trying to handle them so literally, just
Right.
like, and the line, it adds a nice sense of scale and a nice,
Okay.
it's like, the point of a Drawdle is to have the graphic with your model, and they're supposed to combine to make something more cohesive. So
Okay.
I would try to keep the line work as much as possible. As Chadi was saying too, like even though I cut this out,
Mm-hmm.
you can figure out how
Potentially
to
put that back in.
you can figure out how to potentially line it up with something and even put it back in.
Okay.
Something like that. Obviously you guys would plan a lot more, so you wouldn't be just like guessing how I'm kind of doing.
Mm-hmm.
But when you plan it out and everything, it does help a lot.
That's how I go into most of my projects. Just let my imagination run wild.
Yeah. That's also a good thing. So I mean,
No, not yet.
Yeah, since you closed it.
Sorry, I was asking questions.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Paper.
also each cut that you do, it doesn't have to only have one stick in it. It could have like, let's say for this one, for example, I could run one right here and then one right here as well. It doesn't have to have only one. And if you guys end up doing the elongated sticks, I would try to not make them all meet at the same point. So how I did this one here and then that one there, if you have them all here, it kind of throws off the image, and people, when you guide a person's eyes, it's gonna guide you to that because it's so similar in everything in your eyes. But once you throw it off like that, it's showing a movement and it's coming in.
So maybe after this one, do some horizontals.
Mm-hmm.
Is our construction lines like part of
Elevator.
our, are we considering our construction lines? Or are we kind of
Very
just
crisp,
ignore
very,
it?
No, your construction line should give it texture and should help you break down the space. And some of the construction line could be brought to life by you putting spaces in them. Like after that, maybe cut up to here and then do something here, like you
So when using the micro lumber,
Mm-hmm.
do you just kind of like just stuff that right in just to emphasize the line itself?
The micro lumber itself, I use that more to make like a sense of scale, how you were saying with the line work, but with the sticks. But the micro lumber, it's not thick enough to literally push and pull. So that's why I use that as that. It's like that was more for materiality, if anything.
Okay.
But it just added a nice sense of material and composition to the graphic.
Give it a crisp feel.
Mm-hmm.
Clean
So you
feel.
see he's carving away this negative space and he's aligning it to this line. So again, alignment, right, is very important. So all of you have your graphics today?
Yes.
Yes.
But I feel like,
I think before you can add.
okay,
Yeah.
now that I look at it, I don't know, I feel like,
Yeah, I mean, after seeing this, you guys may want to change it.
Yeah, I finished my graphic, but right now what I'm at is doing line weights and etching.
Okay.
Pretty much the depth to it. Like I
Yeah.
got everything that I want there. I just need to now add more depth.
Yeah.
And it seems like that's the big part of this is just doing the
Depth is actually it's I wouldn't say depth, but like it's more of like creating a sense of scale in sort of the ground, because this is kind of like a rib structure. So when you're thinking about it, you want to think about how things are elevating, things are going. It's kind of like you're creating a ground. Once you get higher up,
right.
you're gonna start creating grounds, and this is what this is building on. That's building on creating a sense of scale, creating movements throughout a ground plane.
Okay.
That's what, from what I'm at now, I believe that's why we did this in the first place, because it's giving you a sense of how to manipulate things to create scale.
So you took that whole section out. Now you're just gonna add that in somewhere else.
Yeah, but it's kind of big, so I'm not gonna do the entire thing.
Okay.
So we're gonna look at the graphics and we're gonna listen to your concept, look at the graphics, and I may, for some of you, suggest you redo it. As you can see, the better the graphic, the more line types you have on the graphic, varying in scale, the better your drawing is gonna turn out. So if you have larger chunks of graphics being drawn on your paper, it may not look as good, right? So now we can do ideas of scales and proportions.
what do you do with the skinny bitty lines?
These ones right here.
Yeah.
So as I was telling him, so the line work, it's very important in the drawing. So you want to try to keep some of the line work in the drawing, most of it actually. But I don't know if you saw the picture. With the line work, you could also add micro lumber to add a sense of like materiality and also even a smaller scale. But the line work, you want to keep a lot of the line work. Even how Chatty was saying, you want to even pieces that you cut off that have a lot of information, you want to even put back in.
So maybe just stuff like that and maybe add.
One or two.
Piece back in.
I was about to put one right here in a second.
You try and avoid taking out some pieces, like when it comes to like layering on like the photograph and the color that they were talking about, to keep that line information.
Well, that's good.
That line information, you try and keep it as well, like when you're putting on like color and stuff over it.
When I'm putting color stuff over it.
Is this the
It was this one, but right now. I don't know. For that, when you start adding color and all that, I don't know if you guys are, but if you do start adding color, you're going to start. The color isn't meaningless, so I use my color to show the movement throughout the drawing. So it started off here, and when it got here, it was more intense. There was more. I think I did like a blue and a purple, so I started adding more blues, more purples right here, and making them darker. And as they faded away, I started to lower the opacity in Photoshop, and it's like pulling away. But yeah.
Shadi, can we decapitate it so we can just have his head here for questions?
You what?
Can we decapitate it so we can just have the head here for questions? I do not have enough lines on
What is it? Oh, it's from
So maybe that's like the last thing, and then we can know.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I can see them.
For this one, I was just gonna show them how they can add something back in. That's bad though. Bad craft, Johnny.
Yeah, see, I can't. And I don't know. I just get sometimes I do. I started with this, and this is my favorite. Nathan, I got a lace chuckle pencil. I was like, this works. What I did, I do a little
Let me just do that in.
No, I just figured this was going to be like a career, which is good because now we have to do a little. Yeah. You guys want to see
Yeah, like it's over. Oh, this is a very shifting down.
Oh.
I tried to line
We
it
did
up here
some
too.
chapter drawing, which was
So it has some meaning.
So I took that from there and moved it over.
the vine charcoal. The vine charcoal.
So I'm just creating layers on, in this kind of a box space right here.
Yeah, you might want to add one. And she's gonna go on the
Bro. I wish I had my fucking food.
What do you guys
Do you know how lost I am?
Oh, the dotted. It's just to kind of highlight this part right here, like highlight it to like over highlight. And then, but I also wanted to kind of like connect this side of the page. Yeah, I didn't know that. I just extend it. Yeah, extend it instead of stopping it here and just have it open. Okay, I'll open it back up here. And then it's, yeah. The problem is it might look weird because I like bring
Andrew, are you doing your portfolio?
Yeah, bring it back.
Yeah.
I feel like I already have so much stuff that's going on. No, you're good.
Start.
But I could do just make it. It's actually bad if I make it go here. Yeah. I would say just bring it.
My biggest
Like don't bring it all the way up to here. Maybe stop in the middle or make it like.
all my projects are stuff.
What else do you guys think on? Or like
What?
another
Take all my stuff down and
here, make space.
no, like yeah. The reason I don't have to
A smaller. Yeah, that's what I kind of did.
okay, we'll just take one thing.
Because it was really empty.
Small one.
Then I feel like I have to do like yes, over here. That was so. I know, right? I love it. That looks like I actually did. I like that.
I didn't really like that. Did you like show resistance? Or like did you like
Color resistant lately, and then after there,
I need to wear I need to like because the charcoal pencil's okay, but like
so for my
it must be really good.
it is like a dark.
I got everything that I want. Now I'm just doing line weights on the
Dash, like my idea is to kind of this mine, but I feel like now that I saw like everybody else is really, I feel like it's too empty and I need to add more.
my concept for
Thank you.
sorry.
So like, would you suggest like at any point like putting like a little like section like out of the sticks so they like kind of what's it like sit together? You know what I mean?
Like
Like if you were to cut just like a little section in so it'd slide, another one would slide past it, or like instead of just stacking them. You know?
yeah, no, you should definitely do that.
Okay.
That's what I was telling Shadi earlier about like doing notches. You mean?
Yeah, that's what I meant. That was the word. I couldn't think of it. Yeah, so then that one, another one would just like sit kind of in that instead of just having like two.
That's cleaner. I would prefer that, especially if you have time. I didn't have time now, but
Yeah.
that looks a lot cleaner and it shows a way stronger connection. So when you're doing that, it's a lot stronger connection than any of like just gluing. Because the glue does a lot of the work, so it's kind of like hiding stuff. But if you make a strong enough notch, you can literally do it without glue. So that's just showing the strength of everything. I think that's all she told me to do though. Let's see. I would also do it on museum board.
Yeah.
Do your graphic on top and then museum board. It's gonna be a lot easier.
Stronger.
Yeah.
luminescence and introspective.
Omar, para la cámara.
Like inward.
Apaga la cámara.
I think of it as like overthinking,
I'm done.
and that's
I'm done.
like inner chaos.
Yeah.
That's pretty much
Everything